Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for The Voice of Leadership, the show for business executives and global corporations who appreciate a biblical perspective on life and leadership. You are listening to our Fab 500 series featuring some of the best of our 500 episodes and celebrating the 30th year of Trans Leadership Inc. Today, I have a very, very special guest, someone whose backstory and experiences she has leveraged for what she does now. So let me tell you about her because you can do the same thing. Susan Ireland is the co-founder of Seasons Leadership, a professional coaching and consulting services business that she started with her business partner and colleague, Debbie Collard. Their objective is to make leadership excellence the worldwide standard. Susan consults with leaders at all levels to enhance leadership and business acumen, encourage self discovery, and turn challenges into positive results. Prior to her current role, Susan spent 30 years at the Boeing Company, holding a number of director level business operations leadership roles. She also played a key role on the original leadership team that built and established a new digital aviation business for Boeing Commercial Airplanes. At Boeing, Susan navigated and leveraged the complexities of large global organizations. Following her time with Boeing, Susan played a strategic role in a startup company that developed, manufactured, and installed hydrogen systems on diesel engines. There, she provided expertise in steering the design, implementation, and management of business processes. Her experiences at Boeing and the small entrepreneurial company give her the unique background to understand both large enterprises and small startup organizations. Susan holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communications from the University of Washington and a Master of Science in Management from Antioch University. She's an alumni of the International Executive Program at Insead University in France and the Executive Leadership Program at Seattle University. In addition, she holds many coaching certifications, including the ICF Certified Professional Coach Credential. In addition, she's a dynamic speaker and host of the Seasons Leadership Podcast. When she's not helping others along their journeys, Susan enjoys spending time with her family and traveling. Her personal values of wonder and awe have inspired her to see the world, including her long-time goal of living and working in Ireland for an extended period of time. So, Susan, welcome to the Voice of Leadership and to Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Dr. Karen. It's great to be here.
Absolutely wonderful. And you have such a rich background in history, and I want people to hear all about it. And we'll start a little bit with the present and what you're doing right now. So tell us, how did you and your business partner, Debbie, get the idea to start Seasons Leadership?
Well, Dr. Karen, it was really kind of spontaneous. I retired from Boeing in 2016, and I knew at that time I was going to start my own coaching business because I love coaching and I had already kind of got my head around that. That's what I was going to do. So I was doing that. And then a year or so, maybe 2 years later, on LinkedIn, I noticed Debbie said she had retired and became a coach. Well, Debbie and I worked together at Boeing, but we hadn't spoken since I had left. And so I connected with her and we started talking about, why she became a coach. And it was very similar to why I did. She enjoyed working with people and supporting people and helping other people achieve their dreams. Well, she had moved to Texas. I'm in Seattle, but she was in Seattle for a visit and we got together. We just started talking. It was exciting. We said, hey, we could do this and this. And we decided, hey, we want to share. what we've learned in all these years together. She had a 30 plus year, I had a 30-year background, and we just said, let's do it. We both had a passion for the idea of what we knew now, what we have learned. How can we share that with people who are early, mid, late careers to help them accelerate their progress, what they wanted to do? Because, we kind of learned by just going. We were living and learning at the same time. And so we wanted to give people a step up to help them.
I really appreciate that because I think that those of us who have gone through 30 plus years really do need to reach back and give back and to share what we've learned. And that does accelerate, and as I call it, accelerate and elevate the leadership impact of other people. So I want to first of all say thank you for doing that rather than just retiring and moving off into the sunset without sharing all that wisdom and allowing that wisdom to go forward and to benefit other people. So that's spectacular, and I'm glad you decided to do that. Also, I want to ask you because I know that you and Debbie started a course that was designed to capture all of those things that you learned from both of your careers, and you started it at a difficult time right at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. So, what happened with that course, and how did you need to change during the COVID time and even after in order to be successful and effective?
Right. Well, we didn't plan on launching it during COVID. After our conversation when Debbie was in Seattle, we said, hey, let's put everything we know into a program. And we did. And the idea was to have people come together in a cohort and throughout a year. So we wanted it to be a year long because we thought it took that long to really integrate some of these learnings, not just quick. We didn't want a quick fix for people. We wanted something that they could use and actually implement into their careers and lives and see a difference. So we put these together. We were working hard and fast, to do this. And we got a group of, it was all women at the time together and to do an in-person event on March 20th. Right. I was calling Debbie. She was getting on a plane, and I said, I don't know if you should come because I don't know what's happening in Seattle. We were the center of everything. It started here, and she in Texas said, I think it'll be okay. She had no idea, the different environments that we were in. But actually, we had a great first cohort. It was a weekend long. We were the only people in the hotel. The hotel was very generous, and we had food and we had everything we needed. It was a great cohort. But after that, as we all know, everything shut down. Debbie got back to Texas and then the planes stopped, right? So we decided, what are we going to do? Just like everybody in the world, we had to do that word that everybody did, pivot online. And you have to do what you have to do. And so we put our things online. We got our cohort together. Everybody stuck with us and we started doing Zoom. And it worked out great. And actually, we've completed that year, thinking this is going to end soon and we'll go back to our in-person program. And we couldn't, so we did another year virtually. And, it was surprising. I think other people experienced this as well. Our first cohort was generally around the Pacific Northwest because we were located in Seattle. We had a few people fly in for it, but really it was mostly that. When our second year came around, because we were all online, we had people from all over the world, which was fantastic. It brings a whole new dimension to the leadership conversations we were having. So that's what happened there. But then we decided, we were being limited because it's only Debbie and I. So to do the cohort type of classes, it was taking up a lot of our energy and space. And so we decided to put that on hold. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Karen, I don't even think I told you about this. We are getting ready to launch an online version that is more self-paced of our program. And we're excited about that. You're going to see that early summer is when you're going to see that come out.
I think you actually did mention it. And like other business leaders, you've had to innovate, you've had to change, you've had to grow and create new versions of what you started. And so many business leaders, when we talk about a coaching practice or a consulting practice, that's what they need. They need to know how to do that because there's always change going on in the work environment. It's very dynamic. And so you and Debbie, you've lived it, of course, in your previous work lives, and you're also living it now. And I think that that's very credible because you have fresh information about what it takes, to change
Right.
and be successful. So that's wonderful. And I love that story about how you didn't let that stop you. You kept going and you made it work and
Mhm.
made it an advantage, like with the international element.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that we do, it's important to us, and I think it can be helpful to other people to help us be more flexible, is we keep going back to what our mission is. So, our mission is to support leaders to become more excellent leaders. And so when you think about that, it doesn't say how we do that. And so we have to keep looking for ways that really meet people where they are and what they need. And so you have to be creative with that, right? I mean, sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's online. But because that's important to us to support leaders today, that's why we keep going.
Absolutely phenomenal. I'm glad to hear that part of your story as well. You have some concepts that you work with in your business, and one is about the whole notion of being, and then there's the whole notion of doing. Tell us a little bit about that. What is this being? What is this doing? And how do you support leaders in both of those realms?
Right. Well, this is not a concept that we came up with, being and doing. It can be a challenge for us, especially for people who are in the work environment with their careers and leading others, because there's so much pressure on us to perform and to deliver results. And that is focused on what we do, right? But being a leader really first requires who we are in our core, what our values are, why we do what we do, and staying grounded to those things, because that's what shines through. The doing will come. The being is being confident enough in yourself to be yourself, to speak your voice, to allow others space to speak their voice. It's the foundation. So we do spend time on that foundation of who you are as a person, as a leader. And then we talk about how you do it.
I really resonate with what you're talking about when you were talking about the being and doing. And I don't know if you know or remember Frances Hesselbein. She was a nonprofit leader, worked with Peter Drucker. They had Leader to Leader Institute and went through various name changes or whatever. And she lived to be 107 years old. But I worked with her years ago, and she had this concept of being and doing, which she taught often with the military and at West Point. And I'm being a former military officer, of course, I'm familiar with that as well. And so I just think that it's crucial to start with the self. And then the book that I wrote is called Lead Yourself First. It's all about that, understanding who you are, because I think that we are, as I say it, the instruments of our leadership. What we do comes out of who we are. So I think it's phenomenal that you are actually acknowledging that and doing that work with the people who you're consulting with as well. So we are of the same mind when it comes down to that.
No kidding, Dr. Karen. It just coincidentally, I am really diving deep into Frances Hesselbein lately because I've connected with Alan Mullally, and he is a fan of hers and was a close friend of hers. And yes, I am deep into that right now. And it's so interesting that you were connected to her as well.
Yeah, definitely. We did some joint projects together for a number of years with the Texaco first, and then when merged into Chevron Texaco. So that's how I know her. It's from the years of doing that work together. But
I love the synchronicities,
yeah,
of connecting.
you just never know. You also, Susan, refer to your work as business operations consulting. And that's an important term, and it's different from what we often hear. So, what is business operations consulting, and how important is that to leadership success?
Well, I tell you, so that was really my career at Boeing and Debbie's as well. When you get in a big corporation, sometimes the titles and the roles and all of that is not clear. But the business operations, what we mean, it's the organization that is connecting the dots. It's connecting all other functional organizations together. It's describing the plan, putting it all together, the schedule, and the processes that the organization needs to run. It's kind of like the running the organization on the inside. And it's the space between all the different functions, the connection of it. And most often, what I have found is organizations, big and small, don't know about this or they don't do it very well and they don't know what is wrong with their organization. Why aren't we working? Why aren't we communicating? How come, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing? And that's what the business operation function is. It's integrating it all together so everybody knows the plan that we're on, how we're doing on that plan, who needs to do what and when in order to meet our goals.
When I hear you talk about this, Susan, I think a lot about the word alignment, making sure that all parts are aligned. And also the word systems comes to mind, having the right system so that all of this can be done. And I know that you address leadership and management systems. So say a little bit more about that. What are some of those pieces that people often forget?
Right. Well, when you have a leadership systems, first of all, you can start at it, and this is very high level, but understanding who is the leaders, who are they, what are their roles, how they interact together, who is responsible for what, how do they agree to work, what are their operating principles, what are the behaviors that they want to live by. So what's the system that they're going to implement so that they all are working together. And this takes time and dialogue between all the leaders. There's no one system. I can't say like this is what everybody needs to do. It's not a cookie cutter kind of a thing. You go in and you work with the leaders and they participate as they develop their leadership system and then their operating principles. Then, when you talk about a management system, that is the operating rhythm. It's how do you, in an organized, predictable way, manage your business. For example, we advocate having a BPR, a business plan review. This is something that we got right from Alan Mullally. Once a week, a business, a company, an organization has a business plan review where the whole leadership team gets together. And this is for big corporations or small businesses like Debbie and I, we do it every week. And you look at your plan, and everybody has their part of the plan and they report this is how it's going and this is where I need help. This is what's going well, that kind of thing. So everybody knows what's happening in the business. It's very transparent. everything, financials, human resources, engineering, operations, supply chain, everybody is reporting because everybody has an important piece of the business. So you have that in a weekly rhythm. It can go fast. It sounds kind of onerous. People, when I first talk to them about this, they say, "You got to be crazy. I have no time for that." Well, let me tell you, it can go pretty fast, but you can get ahead of problems. You can tackle problems when you have a whole team working on it rather than just one person. Then you have everything is in a system. You look at your financials regularly, you look at your talent in your company regularly. Everything is in a rhythm, and everybody knows what that rhythm is so they can prepare for it. And it takes away the chaos that sometimes running a business can have.
It's like really having the system in place and a rhythm so that what occurs on a regular basis, you're not reinventing the wheel every week to deal with it. You already have the process in place to analyze and look at what you're doing. And I know you say that people usually know that these things are important and know what to do, yet at the same time, they often don't do it. And I just heard you say one of the reasons they might not is they think it's going to take longer than it really does. They don't
Mhm.
understand that they either take a little bit of time and do it now up front or a lot of time on the back end because they didn't do it. So what else gets in people's way? Why do they not do these things that they know are relevant?
One of the big things is they haven't experienced it. So they've only experienced the chaos. That's what their models are. Like, this is what it means to run a company. I'm doing everything, I'm fighting fires, I'm the person in charge, and I need to answer every question. And that's just the way it is. And you can get pretty far that way sometimes, but that has a lot to do with luck. So, but putting a system in place feels constraining. And I think that some people feel like, I want to be free. I want to do whatever I want to do. But when you have an organization that's following you, it feels too chaotic to them. If they have a system, they know what's happening. I think another reason might be ego, like, I know best, so I'm going to do it.
And that doesn't always work. Absolutely. So let's turn back the clock a little bit, and I'm going to ask you some things about Boeing. And you worked with a lot of successful people there. Tell us a little bit about what you learned about successful people and how they operate.
Right. I was super lucky. Working at Boeing really was a great career. And the people there were so dedicated and really, I believe, the smartest people in the world. Really. If I had a question about, like, how does that airplane fly? I was not an engineer, so what about that part? What does that part do? There was somebody always very generous with their time and expertise to explain it to me. It was great in all functions, which was wonderful. So that was amazing to be around people who were at the best of the best. So that was great. What I learned from that is those people who are the best of the best, the people who had the most impact on me, were very generous with their time, with their advice, with their ideas. And what I learned from them is to allow space for other people to learn. When I started, I was a communications major and I went into industrial engineering, which I didn't even know what that was at the time. But they put you in and they gave you a job and then they trained you how to do it. And I found it interesting. And so I looked to other people to learn more. So that's a big one, is to share what you know with others around you.
Yeah, and leave space for the learning because I think creating a culture of learning is certainly a key to success in
Yes.
business. if people will focus on that. What other lessons would you say that you learned from Boeing and being there? What else did you learn that you're even taking with you now and using it?
Right. Well, one of the positive things is that you always have to keep learning, even though, I came from a communication degree and my job wasn't in communications. My job was moved into business operations. Is there's ways to learn and to get competent and to get really good at what you do, but you have to work at it. It doesn't come, out of the blue naturally. You really do have to work on it. And the important thing is to, if it's important to you, work, do it, do the work, go to school, get mentors, practice, ask for assignments that are stretch assignments where you have to really push yourself, and you will learn. But it really is up to you to do that work. Nobody can do that for you.
Yeah, that's really important what you're saying right now about putting yourself in the places where you can learn what's next. And something else you said that I really loved is your own background is in communication. My background is in psychology. We can apply what we've learned in those fields to so many different settings. I mean, what setting doesn't need communication, or in my case, an understanding of people and how they operate? So we can apply that not just in one space, but in multiple spaces, and it becomes a gift or a real ability that is flexible in a lot of senses.
That is exactly right. People are kaleidoscopes of skills and experiences and ideas and thoughts. And the more we can bring that to what we're doing, the more rich and valuable our contributions will be.
Absolutely. So, what would you say prompted you, Susan, to leave Boeing at the time that you did? And how did you even have the courage to make that step? Because so often people stay someplace because it's too difficult to think about moving and doing something different.
Well, that is true. I think it started with a class I took. It was a extra elective class when I was getting my master's, and it was in coaching, which I had never heard of before. And I thought this is interesting. And I did coach people that I worked with, and I did really work with, I love working with people. And so I took it and I really liked it. And the professor said, you can do this as a career. And I thought, what do you mean? I don't even know what that means. She said, people will pay you for this. And I said, I don't know about that. I pushed it off to the side, but I think there was a seed in there that I thought, well, maybe someday I'll look at this. As part of that class and that professor, she was great. We did a values exercise. Now, I had done many values exercises in throughout my career at Boeing because they had training and I went to training and different things. And we were always doing this value exercise. And I could do it pretty fast. It's like a check the box. Like I'd say, I know my values. And it's true, they were my values, but I didn't put very much thought into it. Well, she kept saying, do it again, do it again. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I just don't think you're really digging deep enough. So I really did do it. And I took me, instead of an hour, it took me probably a couple weeks, maybe a month to actually do it. You can look at values exercises on the web. They're all over and they're all about the same. You start with words and then you pick the words that really resonate with you. Well, my words had been safety and security, family, contribution. Those are good. Those are my values. But what I started to realize is why those were my values. I was a single parent for most of my career, and to make sense, safety and security, because I needed to make enough money and have enough security for my family. And family, of course, they were my priority. And contribution was I was at work, so they all played together. It made sense to me. Well, as I was going through this exercise, I realized, well, safety and security is still is. It's not gone. However, the priority has changed because my kids are older. I've worked at Boeing for all these years and I have positions of responsibilities. I'm feeling pretty secure. My risk factor is like way better, I mean, than it was when I was first started Boeing. And I thought, maybe my priorities have changed here now. Not that my family isn't my priority, but where am I spending my attention and focus? So the contribution was still there, but then I said, like, what is it that really lights my fire and gets me going? And so I was thinking about this and I came up with wonder and awe. And that I knew that was it. When I was a little girl, what were the things that I used to dream about? And I wanted to be an astronaut and travel the world and do things like that. And I thought, yeah, I do. I still am that person and I want that. And I have space in my life now to do that. I still have my responsibilities, but I have more space that I could pay attention to that. And that's from then on, I started making my decisions with that in mind. So if I had a new job, I thought, would this give me wonder and awe? Is this, and for me, that means, is it something new? Am I going to be learning something? Is it a great project? And if the answer was yes, I took it. So this is maybe a long way to get to why did I decide to leave Boeing when I did, is because I started thinking about where I was in life. And unfortunately, my son-in-law passed away of leukemia, and it brought into clear focus that life is short in many ways. And I realized I was in a position where I actually could leave and try something else and that would definitely give me wonder and awe. It was a little bit scary, but I felt I was in a position I could do it. And why not? It's this question, what would give me wonder and awe? And that was it. So I leaped, and that's where I was.
That's a great story, and it's a great example about how we can live our lives by our values and also how the values can shift in terms of priority over time. Because when I think about safety and security, it almost feels like the opposite, if you will, of wonder and awe. And yet at the same time, you already built the foundation of safety and security. So that was taken care of, which gave you margin and opportunity to pursue this other piece which had been a part of you in childhood. And so often people don't get to go back to those childhood dreams and live them out. So good for you that you did the exercise longer and got to wonder and awe, and you're living some of that now. In fact, you and I are talking to each other, and you are in Ireland right now. So,
I am. I am. Remember when I was talking about the leadership and management system and the BPR and the regular operating rhythm?
mhm.
So I apply that, to business. And I did it at Boeing and I've done it consulting and it works. It really works. What I didn't talk about is that I do that with my life and it really works. As I talk to you about defining my values and what I want to do when I like, in the future, I think about that on a regular basis. I have an operating rhythm and I put these goals out there and then I put my system in place so I achieve those goals. And I don't do it as rigorously maybe as I would at a business, and I give myself some slack if I don't actually do things on time and I allow, changes. But I really do think the whole process of the mindset of thinking of our life or our projects like this puts in place mechanisms to make sure that they happen.
In fact, I think you're really talking about you decide the what that you want to do and accomplish, and for the various reasons, values based and so on. And what I've discovered is that the how will come to you as you're pursuing the what. And that's what you are really describing. And I think that's very powerful. And I've found too that business tools often work very well for our personal lives. So I'm glad you circled back to say that because that is really relevant. So thank you. I
Mhm.
also want to ask you, Susan, because we know that, you also had this startup experience and
Yes.
working with a smaller entrepreneurial company. So let's talk about them a little bit. What did you learn from that experience? And tell us a little bit about that business as well.
Oh, that was really fun. High tech power. So it was truly a startup and not very many people and everybody doing everything. So when I came on board, I came from my business operations experience and putting the processes together. And I found myself doing HR functions and everything. I was doing everything. I mean, business wise, I wasn't doing any engineering or manufacturing. Yeah, putting the process together so that the business itself could have an operating rhythm, leadership system, and management system. And what I found is in a startup, things move awfully fast. So having that foundation that I had worked really well because I didn't have to learn it. I just was putting it together and working with the leaders there at the time, and they were all on board to be able to do this because they were trying to get more established and more systematized, I guess, to deliver their product. The quickness is really something to learn and to be more flexible. Sometimes, especially in a big corporation like Boeing, you have processes and you've got to follow them. And in a small startup, knowing what the intent of the processes are and then being able to flex and still achieve the intent is important. So you've got to, there's that how you learn, like first you learn the rules and then you learn how to break the rules. That's kind of where I was here with the startup. And so that was good. The other thing is there's not security in startups. You might not get paid. You really need to deliver and not everything works out. And you don't have the backup or the deep pockets that you do in a larger, more established corporation. And so you have to be more willing to accept those risks. So, and I was in a good position since I had retired from Boeing that I was able to take those risks. And I realized that not everybody can.
Yeah, that's really important what you're saying too, knowing that it fits in with your life at that time and that you can manage the ups and downs and the roller coaster experience and so on. And we also know that a lot of startups, a lot of entrepreneurial businesses fail. What's your sense about why that happens? What are some of the hazards that get in their way that
Oh,
cause them to fail?
oh, yeah. And the startup I was with did fail. I think it's probably as many reasons that there are startups out there. It could be the product just wasn't ready and you don't have enough money to push it through to the end. Money is a big deal. Yes, it could be that you just don't have the expertise that you need. I wish I knew all the answers, but there is no one great answer. I think the leaders in those positions have a huge responsibility to the people who are investing in them and the people who are working for them to be as transparent as possible and know when to call it and when to keep going.
Yeah, that timing is not always obvious or
No.
clear, to make those decisions. Sometimes people call it too soon or they stay too long, and then the losses are greater. They weren't going to be effective anyway because of
Yeah.
other parts of the system. There's a lot I'm sure you learned there in this faster pace environment and in this place where you have to be much more agile in a sense. So talk a little bit about those lessons and how you're bringing those forward as well, because you're fortunate. You have both sides of the spectrum, big business and also
Yeah.
entrepreneur, small business.
Well, let's see. If I could say a lesson, one of the lessons that I learned there for startups, to have a diverse set of, I'm going to call them board of advisors. It's not necessarily a formal board of directors or anything like that, but a board of advisors. And diverse is really important because it's people who have different experiences and different perspectives, not just people who tell you what they think you want to hear. I think that would be the best thing. And then to have them be able to tell you as the leader or as the group of leaders, you know, where you can do better.
Yeah, that's really important because it's a recognition of the fact that no one person has all the skills needed to run a business. And so if you're bringing this diverse board around you and you're willing to listen to the advisory board, because the willingness to listen is huge. You can learn what you don't know. You can avoid some unnecessary mistakes and you can get faster to where you need to go. So that's a great lesson that you learned from the entrepreneurial small business.
It is. I think it's hard though. Sometimes I think the thing that gets people into startups is because they have this great idea and they're really good at something about that, either creating it or whatever it is. The problem is that you need much more than that idea to make it a reality. But it's hard to let go being the person, the expert, the founder, to be able to broaden your perspective and call more people in.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. That's a hazard of it. The kind of people that start and found things don't easily let the pieces go, even though at times
True.
they need to. And so, yeah, that's huge what you're saying. You know, Susan, both of these experiences, the startup experience and the Boeing experience, they occurred in what I would refer to as male-dominated fields. Talk a little bit about that, what it was like for you as a woman to work in these spaces. What did you experience and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I did oftentimes, especially when I started in the late 1980s. I was the only woman in the room. And oftentimes, I could see people being promoted a lot quicker and a lot further than I was, which was disappointing. I'm hoping it's better today. I'm not sure if it is, but I'm hoping it is. But what did I learn? I don't know that I learned this doing it. I learned this like thinking about it. Like, what would I do differently? And this is part of the reason why I'm a coach right now, is that I did not advocate for myself. I went with the flow. I was really good at, and I still am really good at reading a room and knowing, like, okay, if I want this, I need to do this. So I'm kind of juggling, other people's needs and wants and things in order to kind of get ahead. And so I think looking back, I could have been a bigger advocate and taken more risks. I didn't. Again, going back, I was a single parent for most of the time, and safety and security was top of my mind. And I had this notion that I didn't want to get fired, and I was afraid I was going to get fired. It's a crazy notion. I was never going to get fired. I was a great employee. People wanted me to work in their groups, and I contributed and I provided a lot of value. Nobody ever suggested I was ever going to get fired. I had that in my mind that I wasn't good enough, I guess, because I wasn't an engineer, I wasn't in manufacturing, I was a communications major. And I think I even earlier in this podcast says I was just a communication major. See, I still do it. I think I could have taken my career more in my own hands, got training earlier than I did. I waited for, Boeing had a training program and everything, but you had to be a certain level before you could take certain classes and that kind of thing, which is great. I mean, it's a big corporation. That's fine. They got to have their own program. Doesn't mean I have to stick with it. And that's where I would have done things differently.
So I heard a lot of things there that as women may be listening to this show that they can take away. One is to advocate for yourself, to include yourself in the group that needs to be developed a service, so to speak. So it's not just thinking about others, which you do naturally, putting yourself in that list. What do I need next and now? And taking the risk to sometimes do it earlier, to do it in a different rhythm than what the company might do on their own. So you can take charge, if you will, of your own career in a lot of ways. And maybe I hear a little bit about balancing out the need for safety and security in terms of the risk taking and being willing to get out front a little earlier, a little sooner. What else would you advise women to think about today based on your experience that we haven't said yet?
Let's see. I would say get a coach, get somebody to talk to. And it doesn't have to be, a paid coach, but you can get a mentor. You can do it with your colleagues. You push each other. Sometimes we can see something in another person that they can't see for themselves. Tell them, tell your friends and be open when your friends tell you, like, I see something special in you. You do this really well. Do more of it. Support each other, lift each other up. I think that's really important. Some of the things is we don't even know what's possible. And that's why talking to others can really help us. It was somebody else suggested to me that I get into management. I didn't think about it at first.
Yeah, it's good to have outside perspective for sure, because people will see the gifts in us that we sometimes ignore because it's just, oh, that's just us. That's nothing special. And we forget, for example, you being in these high-tech kind of environments, your communications background, they needed that because
Well,
that's not what the tech people are good at usually. So
you're exactly right because we need everybody. And my role integrating and aligning all the different functions is vital for the success of a project. It's seeing the value in what we do ourselves. The other thing I would say is, and you can hear it in my voice, I would say, like, oh, I will fall into, I was just a communications major or something. Just because I do that and say that and think that sometimes, I don't let myself off the hook. I still have to step up and perform and show up and be a leader. I'm not perfect. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, accept yourself with the imperfections because you're still making a great contribution is the bottom line.
Of
Oh,
course we are, and when nobody's perfect. And so it's like, in spite of everything, still do what you need to do.
exactly. You are working with a number of people now, and you've seen clients, and you're looking at the business optics of today and into the future. What are some of the challenges that people are facing most in the world today, so far as leadership or business operations?
Well, I'll just say for leadership, people are tired and burnt out.
Mm.
I hear it every single day. They're trying their best, they're tired and burnt out. So the thing I think people can do, and this is so hard, is to take care of themselves. It's so important, and we deprioritize ourselves so much. Everybody does it, especially women. Everybody comes first. Then who are we when we are burnt out and tired? We're cranky, short, we don't make good decisions, we hurt relationships, we're not good leaders.
And we might even jeopardize the people who we think we're helping because I'm thinking about that airplane example when you're with someone else who needs help and you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. Because if you don't, you die and they die too. So it's
It's exactly true. And
Mhm.
the really great leaders that I know, I'm very blessed to be know quite a few. They do this really well. It's amazing. And you think like, how can you do that? And they say, I just do it. It's important. So it's a lesson into leadership is to set those boundaries for yourself and take it. When we do that, other people respect them.
Oh yeah. And they see a model, an example of how to succeed. If
Yes.
they don't see that, they don't know it's possible. And
Yes,
so then they're on the treadmill and they can't get off either. So I
it's
think we
true.
certainly have to model that as well. So, in the time that we have left, and I know we're winding down, I want to ask you about your podcast, Seasons of Leadership. Tell us about that. Who's on it? Who should listen? And what will they gain from listening?
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Karen. Seasons Leadership is a podcast Debbie and I have done for about, it's going on 4 years almost. And we call ourselves accidental podcasters because we got in it through somebody else and then we started having fun and we kept doing it. It's still learning, but it's for anybody who is a leader. And we believe we are all leaders at some point in our life. It's not a positional title, but we're leaders for our family, for our groups, in our communities. And so, what we do is we talk about leadership excellence and what that looks like. And we have different guests on from different fields and perspectives because a leader is not the same. I mean, there are as many leader examples as there are people who are leaders. So, we want to show people that you don't have to be a cookie cutter mold to be a leader. You can be who you are, and we've got plenty of examples of that.
Oh, wonderful. So, I'm going to direct people, please check out Seasons of Leadership and tap into some of this leadership excellence that we're talking about. So, Susan, how can people reach you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Well, the one of the best places is through our website, which is seasonsleadership.com, or through our Patreon site. So if you look at Patreon, then you just look at Seasons Leadership and that comes up. Our podcast is on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And I think that's about it. And we're also on LinkedIn too.
All right, so they can look you up through your website, on LinkedIn, and through the podcast hosting, I'll say channels. They can
Yeah.
access the podcast there as well. So, Susan, you've shared a lot of deep wisdom with the community already that comes from big business and small business as well. What additional words of wisdom do you want to leave for my community of corporate business executives and leaders?
I appreciate what leaders are doing. I think we need excellent leaders because that will change the world for the better. Leaders can lead with humility, love, and service, and the world will be better.
Well, amen to that part. Humility, love, and service. I'm a proponent for all three of those. Thank you so much, Susan, for being with me today. I really appreciate it and for sharing your love and humility and service even to the community today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so today, as we are closing out our show, I'd like to share a Bible verse that comes from Proverbs, the 18th chapter and verse 15. And it says, "The heart of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge." And everything we've been talking about today is about how to get additional knowledge and also wisdom, which is that knowledge applied, and to go outside of yourself sometimes to get it, whether it be your board of advisors, whether it be a coach, a mentor, or a consultant that you might bring in, or people on your team. We are doing this work together and collaboratively and in co-creation. So, all the best to you as you pursue excellence in leadership. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. Hi, this is Dr. Karen here today, and I want to share some important insights with you about Spirit Wings Kids Foundation, a 501(c)(3) organization that's doing wonders across the globe and especially in Uganda. And today I have with me Donna Johnson, who's the founder of Spirit Wings Kids and a member of the board. And today she's going to tell us about the permaculture farm that they have started. Donna, tell us all about it.
Thank you, Dr. Karen. For decades, we've been supporting the orphanage and family network in Uganda. And in 2018, my son is a permaculturist, and we had acres that we dedicated to his planting. And it was just amazing. And he also taught them how to do permaculture, and it's flourishing. In fact, during the pandemic, it saved lives. 203 families were fed during the pandemic. And so it's such a miracle that God just called us to plant that garden at the time that we did.
Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you so much for your work in Uganda. And a couple of other things I want people to know. As a permaculture farm is self-contained in many ways, depending on how they're growing the crops. You don't have to use pest control. You don't need fertilizer. It's a very sustainable way to provide food for the community. And so that's a blessing. So if you want to be a part of this wonderful work out there, 100% of all of your donation goes to the people in Uganda to help feed them and their families. So go to swkids.foundation and give today. Make a difference in the world. And thank you for doing so. Hi, it's Dr. Karen here today, and I want to tell you a little bit about Spirit Wings Kids Foundation, a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization. And it's an organization that provides profound services for orphans and for widows and families across the globe in many ways, and especially in the country of Uganda. So today I'm speaking with Donna Johnson, who is the founder of Spirit Wings Kids and also a board member. Donna, tell us about some example of the profound work that you're doing in Uganda.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Karen. We were just there a few weeks ago, and it's incredible. It's more than an orphanage. We have a soccer academy that keeps the boys off the street. We have a widows program that matches them with children. And it's just a thriving network of really entrepreneurs. And it's just been such a meaningful blessing to see the work that we're doing there.
You know what, Donna, what I love about what you said just now is you're really talking about their whole lives. You're creating families between the widows and the children. And you're also making sure they have recreation and something to do with the soccer academy. And you're looking at the job situation and the entrepreneurial aspect. And as a businesswoman yourself who's very successful, you're right in line with being able to make that difference. Thank you so much for the difference that you're making. And I'm inviting everyone who's watching and listening today to go to swkids.foundation and donate now. 100% of everything you donate goes to those people who are in need and who are receiving those services. Thank you so much for donating. And Donna, thank you for this ministry. Hi, this is Dr. Karen, and today I'm here with Terrence Chapman, who is the president and CEO of Victorious Family and also the author of Do Your Children Believe? Victorious Family has a goal of reaching 9.2 million families by 2030. Terrence, tell us, how far along are you on that goal?
Well, we're very excited. Last year, for example, we reached 133,800 families, and prior to that, so we're right on around the 400,000 family mark towards our 9.2 million goal in the second year, really in a year and a half. So we're extremely excited.
That is very, very exciting news. And I know that it's many new initiatives that help you to reach even more families. So tell us what's new in the ministry.
What's exciting in December 7th of 2023, we had a national newspaper cover Victoria's family, and it went throughout the country. And that has exposed us to over 30 million families in the US. From that, we've got a great deal of responses. And one of those responses is a new partnership that we're forming with Hampton University to come alongside of them and work in 8 counties in the Hampton Roads area. So we're real excited about that. Millions of families will be exposed to what does it look like to have family transformation taking place in their home.
That's phenomenal. So, how can people reach you and how can they reach your weekly resource that you have as well?
Well, they can reach us at victoriousfamily.org, victoriousfamily.org. Our resources are there, and we're excited because we have a brand new resource that just came out. It's our weekly rhythms guide. It really gives the parent and individual kind of a day-to-day rhythm and how they might walk in Christ. And so we really would encourage that they get a copy of our weekly rhythms guide for parents and individuals.
Thank you so much, Terrence. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. And to you out there in the audience, please go to victoriousfamily.org, donate to the ministry, get the weekly rhythms guide, and see what else is new in the ministry. See you next time. Thank you for listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. I am also your concierge executive leadership advisor for when you need to make tough business decisions, lead change, create a positive and profitable company culture, develop an enterprise-focused executive team, or prepare for leadership transition and succession. Contact me at Dr. Karen, at transleadership.com. Also go to my website, www.transleadership.com, for more leadership resources. I want to give special thanks to Ron McMillan, gospel jazz saxophonist, National Billboard recording artist, also known as Mr. Sirius XM, for allowing us to use his gifted music on our show, and to Chad Barr of the Chad Barr Group for serving as our show producer. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.